Welcome back, everybody. Today is going to be my first impressions of 7.32e after playing the patch for about a day. There are some crucial changes that happened, despite the fact that this patch was a bit underwhelming in regards to its size. I think it definitely drastically affects which heroes are good right now. I think a lot of what we need to realize is that the game is the exact same in regards to what is good. So to clarify what I mean by that is that I think the first 15 minutes is still all about having strong lanes, having at least one hero that can take early towers, whether that's like a DP mid, DP offlane, summons hero in the offlane, a carry like Terrorblade, and having that early map control where you get more farming space than the opponent. And then I feel like it's doing the exact same thing as prior, where both teams get their 15-minute towers, like however many they've gotten, that's what they're going to get. And then both teams start farming. So what I do believe about the meta that's changed a little bit is that they have nerfed all summons heroes so that they do 10% less damage to towers. Not much, but I'd say it definitely matters. Like it slows down those summons heroes from taking over the map. So that means that you're going to have to do a little bit less on the map in the first 15 minutes as a carry specifically. So I think what that means is that heroes that generally didn't contribute much in the early game will have more value. I think if you're still against these summons heroes in my bracket, I'm still seeing them a lot as of now, that the carry meta is going to be very similar to what it was last patch. But if people start leaning away from the summons heroes, you're seeing less summons heroes. Then I think heroes like Anti-Mage, PA, Faceless Void, these are heroes that just don't really contribute to the game in the first 15 minutes in regards to like taking towers and such. I think these heroes will go up in value. I think the biggest thing about the items is that they've nerfed a lot of the utility items, Force Staff, Greaves, and they also nerfed Maelstrom. And then the big buff comes in with Radiance. I've tried it a few times. I've tried it on Naga specifically, and the 350 gold is pretty noticeable for getting it out earlier in the game. So I do believe that we're going to see a lot more Radiance heroes. These heroes that come to mind are Naga, Alchemist. I want to try carry Abaddon a little bit, but I'm not sure if I believe in it. Wraith King, and perhaps Spectre. The biggest thing about these heroes, like I said, is that they will have a bit more time to get this Radiance, and they don't need as much time to get the Radiance. On Naga, I had a 15-minute Radiance today in a not-so-free farm game, and I definitely used to get that around 16 or 17. So that 350 gold, definitely noticeable. So I think of a lot of heroes that were not viable last patch were because they weren't good against ranged turret heroes. Turret heroes being Lina, Nature's Prophet, Drow. And these heroes received sizable nerfs. Lina's win rate is like 6% lower than it was before. I think Drow definitely feels worse. I've seen her in 3 of my games today. I think what made Drow good towards the end of last patch was she'd be paired with like an SF mid, a TA mid, something like that. And that hero or Drow would be killing you. And now it feels like more Drow is just about Drow. So she's definitely still viable. So you think about the Hurricane Pike nerf, the Scotty buff, when you think of the Gleipnir nerf for heroes like Nature's Prophet and Lina, I think we're definitely going to be leaning away from the ranged turret meta. With that in mind, I think the 5 position was characterized last patch by making sure these summoned heroes didn't crush the lane. And based on that, you also wanted to pick ranged heroes for the carry role because you had like trees and undyings as your 5s. So I think what we're looking at now is more melee heroes. Like I feel like I want to pick melee heroes in the safe lane. So if I want to pick a melee hero in the safe lane, then I do want a ranged 5. So heroes that come to mind for securing my lane that I really think I want to see is like Jakiro. I think Disruptor's still really strong. Crystal Maiden, perhaps even Enchantress. I do think Enchantress is like the unsung, she's like snuck in there. The stealth buffs. She was already getting played offlane last patch. And I think if you want to have a little fun cheesing people, offlane Enchantress I do think is really powerful. But these like ranged lane securers, they even got some buffs on Jakiro. Lich actually comes to mind as really strong. Oh, I also really like Warlock. Played a game with Warlock and he's like another ranged lane securing hero. These are the heroes I seem to want on my team when I'm playing carry. Mid I think is the exact same as it was before. I think the heroes like Tusk, Pangolier, and Batrider, these like super active mid laners that can gank early, I think these heroes are still quite strong. The only thing I will say is that the heroes that are good against mobile melee guys like Puck, I think are going to be generally better or getting a little bit of a buff compared to the likes of Pangolier. Like Pangolier is much better against ranged carries that can't really get away from him once he gets on top of them. And I really do believe we're going to be taking a shift away from ranged carries. Speaking of ranged carries, as of now, Muerta does have a 38% win rate in my bracket. I think the hero has a lot of potential, but I don't think she's really got the numbers to be high enough to make her work right now. So I do believe they'll be buffing her in the next week or so. Maybe just some higher numbers, really. Like, I think her base stats are just a little bit too low. She's pretty slow, so it's hard for her to gank as a mid. Her base damage is kind of mediocre. She definitely isn't survivable enough to be an offlaner, and 2 of her abilities make her a core, so it doesn't really feel like she's a support either. I would say the heroes that I'm mainly going to be looking at the carry role that I did not pick last patch, Luna, most notably because I think Luna was only bad last patch because she didn't do single target physical damage against these BKB turret heroes. And then also Juggernaut. I do think his buffs are nice. This is a nerf, the Blade Fury nerf, but I do believe the base damage in lane and the Blade Dance crit is relevant amounts of damage for Jug. Klink's win rate also seems to be out the roof, so I might even give him a shot. I've always not been a huge fan of Klink's, but giving him half of his shard for free definitely seems pretty good. And if there's less summons heroes in the meta, that means the pace of the game will be a bit slower. I think Klink's really hated the pace of the game last patch. I know he was already broken in your guys' bracket a lot, but it was hard to make him work in mine. I do think Klink's is worth trying. I would say last but not least, we'll just mention a few item changes that don't affect like the overall meta, but they definitely affect how you play the game. I'd say Boots of Bearing. They don't affect the meta, but they do affect what you buy. So Boots of Bearing seems pretty broken. Now that it no longer has charges, you can just spam it off cooldown. Has like a 30-second cooldown. In the laning phase specifically, Enchanted Mago nerf, as well as the Wraithband nerf. Last patch, towards the end, people were just buying Wraithbands to give them armor with effective HP, good trading, and then they were buying Mangoes in order to regen. A lot of Mangoes and Wraithbands last patch, and I think the Mango nerf is sufficient enough to make you not really buy it for health regen anymore. Feels pretty bad overall. And the Wraithband nerf, in tandem with the Mango nerf, like I think the two kind of went like they coincided, right? I think they kind of relied on each other. So heroes with built-in sustain in lane, heroes that either buy like a natural ring of health, or heroes like Lifestealer that have sustain, Jug. I do think they went up in value. I think any heroes that relied on Mangoes and Wraithbands definitely have taken a step down. So I actually believe that the most impactful change of this patch in regards to something you guys need to make sure you take advantage of is that if you click the hero icon at the top of the screen, if they were to check my hero, they would be able to see exactly what's in my inventory and where I was last seen, even if it's just for a little bit of time. So definitely something you guys should make use of, where as a side laner, I'm especially checking the mid, where if the mid's missing, I'm wondering what's going on. I can see if they had like high health, high mana when they left the lane and know if I'm gonna get ganked or not. So this is really important. And to make use of it right away, I'm trying to make sure I remember to do it as often as possible. I imagine that they will eventually tweak it so that the person has to show on the map for a certain amount of time. And perhaps if they haven't shown for a while, maybe like 15 seconds, it would no longer allow you to click and see what they had. With that said, I will be giving you guys a meta update every single week. It'll come out either Monday or Tuesday. So if you want to keep up with exactly what I'm seeing in my games and what seems to be having success in this patch and what's trending as well with item builds and such, make sure you guys check out my meta videos every week. I'll see you guys next time. BSJ out.